The market square of Bright Hollow was never quiet. Every morning, merchants called out their best bargains, children filled the streets with laughter, and neighbors swapped stories as if they had all the time in the world. But on this particular morning, something extraordinary happened. Every voice fell silent as an old traveler stepped into the village carrying nothing but a worn walking stick and a tiny leather pouch. No wagon followed him. No animals carried his belongings. There were no baskets of goods to sell. Yet something about the calm look on his face made everyone wonder why he had come. Without raising his voice, the traveler spoke words that no one would ever forget. Inside this pouch are seeds unlike any you've ever seen. They only grow for those willing to care for something they cannot yet understand. For just a moment, no one said a word. Then the silence broke into laughter. A seed, one baker shouted. My chickens produce more valuable things than that. Another villager crossed his arms. Sounds cursed. A woman shook her head. If nobody knows what they'll become, why would anyone plant one? One by one, every villager refused. No. Not interested. Take them somewhere else. The traveler argued with no one. He simply nodded politely, accepting every rejection with the same peaceful smile. Near the edge of the crowd stood a quiet groundskeeper named Elias. He spent his days repairing broken fences, clearing weeds, and caring for neglected gardens. Few people noticed him. But Elias noticed everyone. Especially those who stood alone. Elias looked at the traveler. You've carried those seeds a long way. I have. And now, no one wants them. The traveler smiled gently. Not everyone sees value before it grows. Elias looked down at the tiny seed. He wasn't expecting riches. He simply couldn't bear to see something discarded without ever being given a chance. I'll take one. The traveler carefully placed the seed into Elias's hand. It felt strangely warm. Their eyes met. Take care of it, the traveler said softly. Not because you know what it will become, but because you don't. Then, without another word, the old traveler walked away until he disappeared beyond the distant hills. No one ever learned his name. But everyone remembered the man foolish enough to accept the seed nobody wanted. Outside Bright Hollow lay a forgotten piece of land that everyone had given up on. The ground was dry, the soil was cracked, and even weeds struggled to survive there. As Elias looked across the empty field, he smiled gently. If anything deserves another chance, he whispered, it's this place. With careful hands, Elias dug a small hole in the lifeless ground. He placed the tiny seed inside, covered it with soil, and poured the little water he had carried from the nearby stream. There were no flashes of light. No mysterious sounds. Only silence. And hope. The next morning, Elias returned. Nothing. The next week. Still nothing. Days quietly turned into weeks, and weeks slowly became months. Every sunrise, before beginning his work, he watered the same patch of earth. Every evening, before going home, he stopped to look, hoping for even the smallest sign. But the ground remained still. Before long, the villagers noticed. Look, one young man laughed. He's watering dirt again. Children burst into giggles. Don't forget to tell your invisible tree good morning. Elias simply smiled. I already did. His quiet answer only made them laugh harder. That evening, Elias shared a simple meal with his younger sister, Myra. She watched him quietly before asking, do you really think the seed will grow? Elias paused. I don't know. She looked puzzled. Then why do you keep trying? Elias looked toward the forgotten field beyond the window. Because if I give up now, he said softly, then I never truly planted it. Myra frowned. That doesn't make sense. Elias smiled. Maybe not today. Even Elias began to wonder if everyone else had been right. Perhaps the traveler had been mistaken. Perhaps the seed would never grow. Standing beneath the stars, he looked at the silent earth and whispered, If there's something you're waiting for, I'll wait too. Little did he know. The seed had already begun changing the village in ways no one could yet see. The very next morning, something unusual happened. As Elias approached the field with his watering bucket, he stopped in his tracks. Dozens of bright blue birds circled silently above the patch of earth. They didn't peck at the soil. They didn't search for food. Instead, they settled gently around the place where the seed had been planted, as if they were quietly standing guard. Elias had never seen anything like it. A few days later, another surprise appeared. Tiny white flowers bloomed around the cracked earth. It wasn't the season for flowers. Nothing should have been growing there. An old shepherd passing by stopped and rubbed his eyes. "I've walked these fields for 40 years, he said. "I've never seen flowers bloom on this land." For the first time, even the skeptics had no explanation. Then came the rain. It was gentle and refreshing. Later that evening, as moonlight covered the quiet hillside, the villagers noticed something extraordinary. The ground shimmered softly. Not bright enough to frighten anyone. Just enough to make people stop and wonder. News spread through Bright Hollow before sunrise. Something strange was happening. The laughter slowly disappeared. In its place came whispers. Maybe the traveler was telling the truth. What if the seed really is special? Should we have taken one too? For the first time since Elias planted the seed, people weren't laughing anymore. They were watching and wondering what would happen next. Curiosity soon turned into temptation. Late one night, while most of Bright Hollow slept, several villagers quietly returned carrying lanterns and shovels. One man whispered, "If there's treasure beneath this ground, we'll find it before anyone else does." Another nodded, "We'll simply put everything back before morning." Slowly, the first shovel touched the earth. The moment the metal shovel broke the surface, the sky erupted. The blue birds burst into flight all at once. Their wings rushed through the air with a sound so sudden that every villager jumped. One stumbled backward into the mud. Another dropped his lantern. A third ran without looking back. From across the field, Elias heard the commotion and hurried toward them. Breathing heavily, Elias looked at the disturbed soil. Then he looked at the villagers. "What are you doing?" he asked calmly. One man quickly answered, "We're protecting the village." Elias glanced at the shovel marks before quietly replying, "By digging up someone else's hope." No one could answer. One by one, they lowered their heads in silence. By the next morning, the entire village was talking about the mysterious field. The village council called an emergency meeting. Voices echoed through the old hall. "Whatever is happening out there isn't natural," one elder insisted. "We should destroy it before it becomes dangerous." Another elder shook his head. "Destroy what? There isn't even a tree." "Exactly," the first replied. "That's what worries me." Soon the room filled with arguments. Some believed the seed carried a blessing. Others feared it carried a curse. For the first time in years, Bright Hollow wasn't divided by money or land. It was divided by uncertainty. When the meeting ended, no decision had been made. But one thing was clear. Most people blamed Elias. Some whispered as he walked by, if he hadn't planted that strange seed, none of this would be happening. Others simply looked away. For the first time, Elias felt truly alone. Yet the following morning, just as always, he picked up his bucket and walked back to the forgotten field. The sun had barely risen. Morning mist still rested over the hills. As Elias stepped closer, he froze. The ground had opened ever so slightly, and from the center, a tiny green shoot reached toward the sky. For months, there had been nothing. Now, life had finally appeared. A smile spread across Elias's face. Tears quietly filled his eyes. "You made it," he whispered. Word traveled faster than the morning breeze. It's growing. Within minutes, villagers came running from every corner of Bright Hollow. The same people who had laughed now stood speechless. No one dared touch it. No one laughed anymore. The tiny sprout seemed ordinary. Yet somehow, everyone felt they were standing before something extraordinary. Week after week, the little sprout grew stronger. Fresh leaves unfolded like tiny hands greeting the sun. Its branches reached higher with each passing day. Birds built nests among its limbs. Butterflies filled the air. And slowly, the forgotten field began changing too. Grass returned. Wildflowers painted the ground with color. The dry earth softened beneath every rainfall. Life was returning. One quiet day at a time. Then came the greatest surprise of all. The wells that had nearly run dry began filling with fresh, clear water. Fields that had struggled for years suddenly produced healthy harvests. Families who worried about their next meal found hope once again. No one could explain it. The tree wasn't producing gold. It wasn't performing magic. It was simply bringing life where life had almost been forgotten. As the seasons changed, the tree revealed one final surprise. Tiny blossoms appeared across its branches. Before long, they became beautiful golden fruit. The villagers stared in amazement. They expected jewels. They expected treasure. Instead, the tree offered something far more valuable. Food. Simple. Wholesome. Abundant food. The fruit was unlike anything the villagers had ever tasted. It was sweet. Nutritious. And remarkably, it stayed fresh for weeks. During the next poor harvest season, when many feared there wouldn't be enough food, the tree provided more than enough for everyone. No family went hungry. No child went without a meal. The forgotten seed had become the village's greatest blessing. Months later, as laughter echoed beneath the great tree, a familiar sound drifted through the air. Tap! 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 The steady rhythm of a wooden walking stick. The old traveler had returned. He stopped beneath the spreading branches and looked up with a gentle smile. I see someone understood. The villagers hurried toward him. Were the seeds magical? Were they enchanted? Can we have more? The traveler quietly opened another leather pouch. Inside were dozens of the very same seeds. The crowd fell silent. The seeds were never rare, he said softly. Then he turned toward Elias. Patience was. Those 3 words settled over the village more deeply than any speech ever could. Holding up one tiny seed, the traveler continued. This seed simply awakens what people are willing to nurture. He looked around at every face. Most of you rejected it because you wanted certainty before effort. The villagers lowered their eyes. Almost everyone hoped for a miracle, he said with a kind smile. But only one person was willing to become part of one. No one could argue. They finally understood. One by one, the villagers stepped forward. The baker who had laughed spoke first. Elias? I'm sorry. The children placed small flowers beneath the tree. Even the elders admitted they had nearly destroyed the very thing that had saved them. Elias listened quietly. There was no anger in his heart. Only gratitude. Elias could have kept the tree for himself. Instead, he shared its fruit with every family. Travelers found rest beneath its branches. Children filled the air with laughter. Neighbors who once argued now shared meals together in its shade. Before leaving, the traveler handed the remaining seeds to the village. No one can plant them for you, he said. But now, you know what they truly need. Years passed, and every child in Bright Hollow grew up hearing the story of the seed nobody wanted to plant. Not because it became the tallest tree, but because it revealed the greatest truth. Great opportunities rarely arrive looking extraordinary. They often appear as small, Ordinary moments, waiting for someone with enough patience, kindness, and courage to nurture them. And perhaps the greatest miracle was never the seed that grew. It was the heart willing to plant it when everyone else walked away. Sometimes, the greatest opportunities don't arrive with applause. They come quietly, disguised as ordinary moments, waiting for someone brave enough to believe before everyone else does. If this story touched your heart, let us know in the comments. What do you think the seed in your own life might be? If you enjoyed this story, please like, subscribe, and share it with someone who needs a little hope today. Thank you for spending these moments with Think Tale, where every story plants a seed of wisdom. Until next time. Keep believing, keep growing, and never underestimate the power of small beginnings.